back, guys. In this video, I'm going to show you how to measure the yoke of your Avena sweater, which is looking so good right now. The color work is so fun. I'm so in love with this pattern. I'm so excited. And then we're also going to separate the body from the sleeves. And then the easy part comes, which is a lot of couch knitting because you're just going to knit evenly for the body. It's going to be great. So let's jump in. Okay, so in the instructions, you are given the amount of stitches you need to count from the end of round marker to get to your center and mark the center, which is on the front side. So I have done that, and I've flattened this out as best I can because I want to measure it. So I have a measuring tape here. And for the size I'm doing, I want this to be 8 inches. So I'm just going to kind of hold this here, and I'm going to just pull it a little bit to stretch. And I'm actually, now I am measuring to the rolled part of the collar. See this? So I'm not going to flatten it out. That's going to give me 9 inches. But right here, if I just kind of flatten this out along here, I'm at about 8.5 inches already. So I don't need to add any more rounds, but for your size, you might have to knit evenly all the way around until you hit your measurement. Now the measurement for the size I'm doing is 8 inches, and I'm actually over that at 8.25. Yeah, 8.25. So that just means for me that my armpits are not going to be snug in my armpit. They're going to be dropped just a little. And let's be honest, that just feels a little better when you can have breathing room anyway. So I'm good to go, but you need to measure yours. And if you need to do a few more rounds to hit your measurement, you're going to go ahead and do that. But then come back here, and right now I'm going to talk about how to separate for the sleeves. So we need to knit a prescribed amount of stitches so that we can begin to separate for the sleeves. So I'm going to go ahead and knit that amount of stitches before we separate, and then I'll jump back in here and I'll show you how to put all of those on waste yarn. Okay, I'm just knitting my very last stitch here before it's time for me to slip the next, let's see, 40 something stitches, 48 stitches onto waste yarn. Okay, so let me find my waste yarn. I have some contrasting yarn from this color up here. So pretty. So I have a big long piece of waste yarn, and I have it on a darning needle. So basically all I'm going to do is slip the prescribed number of stitches off of the left needle and onto my darning needle, sliding them carefully down my waste yarn, but of course not off the edge. So count very carefully and slip your amount of prescribed stitches off onto your waste yarn. 46, 47, 48. Okay, so I've got all 48 stitches. So now I just want to carefully, so here's the end, so I've got plenty of room here. I want to carefully pull this through and get my needle off here. All right, so now I've got waste yarn here, and I've got all of my stitches just kind of sitting on this piece of yarn. I'll tie this in a bow a little later so that it doesn't come out, but I'm just going to move it out of the way for now. And then I have a second piece of waste yarn here that I need for the other sleeve that I'm just going to go ahead and get ready right now while I'm thinking about it, and then I'm going to set that aside. Okay, so now this becomes our sleeve. Okay, now you'll notice that I have so much slack here that I can very easily stretch this out. So make sure your waste yarn is long enough to accomplish this. So now I have to cast on a couple of stitches. Okay, so I need to cast on, I'm going to find the needle here with my yarn attached to it. Okay, I'm going to cast on 3 stitches using the backwards loop. So the easiest way, what I like to do is I just like to sweep underneath the yarn. So if I'm holding it out, I sweep underneath and then I turn my hand over and then I slip that loop onto the needle, just like that. So there's 1, 2, 3. Then it says we're going to place a beginning of round marker. So even though we already have a beginning of round marker, this is going to be our new beginning of round. So here's a new marker. I'm going to slip it. And then for my size, it says cast on 4 more stitches. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you're going to cast on the prescribed number of stitches for your size. You're going to place a marker and then you're going to cast on a couple more. Now we're going to keep knitting across the front until we get to the other sleeve, and then we're going to do the exact same process with the other sleeve. Although on the other side, when you cast on your stitches, there will not be a marker in front of them. It'll be nice and easy. Now the problem here is that, let's see, my yarn is over here and I got to get it way over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the sleeve out of the way so that these two meet. Hi guys. And I'm literally going to pretend that all this weird bulkiness is not in my way, even though it totally is. And I'm just going to start knitting. I'm going to insert my right needle into the first stitch on the left needle. I'm going to hold them nice and close, and then I'm going to do a stitch just like that. And then I'm going to keep knitting until I get to the sleeves. Now, you will notice that as you go on, the part where you joined here will get kind of far away and there might be a gap here, but you're going to be able to close that really easily as you keep going all the way around. So don't worry about that. If there ends up being a gap there, we can fix it later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep knitting across the front side. Then I'm going to put my other sleeve on waste yarn, and then I'm going to knit to my original beginning of round, and then I will have a good spot where I can count and make sure I have the right amount of body stitches. Okay, so I am going to keep knitting until I get to the next part of the sleeve, where I'm also going to remove the same amount of stitches onto a piece of waste yarn for sleeve number 2. Then I'm going to continue knitting to my beginning of round marker. Now, we have placed a new marker under the armpit. So when you get to your original beginning of round marker, you can remove it because we're going to use the one that we just placed in the middle of those cast-ons at the armpit as our new beginning of round marker. So at this point, once you get back to that beginning of round marker, all you do is kick back and you're going to knit even in stockinette stitch for 10 inches. Glorious. This is my favorite part. A lot of TV watching knitting. So anyways, I'm going to go and I'm going to knit my 10 inches. And once I have that, I will meet you back here for the next video where we will try on the garment and make sure it fits. And then I'll demonstrate the bind off for you. See you there.